The United States of America says it is still to decide on officially entering the Israel-Iran war as firing of missiles and drones by both the sides continues for the 8th consecutive day. Let's now take a look at the top developments at this hour. Speaking at the UNHRC in Geneva, the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that the world needs to act to stop Israeli aggression. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says that the country was attacked by Israel as it was in the middle of a diplomatic process, referring to the nuclear talks with the US. He calls it a betrayal of democracy and calls the attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities as war crimes. The Israeli military says it has completed a series of overnight strikes in the heart of Tehran. Dozens of military targets in Iran were hit, including military industrial sites for missile production and the SPND headquarters for research and development of the nuclear weapons project. It said more than 60 Air Force fighter jets attacked the targets with precise intelligence guidance from the intelligence branch using approximately 120 munitions. Journalists from around the world have gathered in front of the building of Germany's permanent mission to the United Nations in Geneva. Ahead of the meeting between Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and his French, German, British and European counterparts at the German residence, they will discuss the Iranian nuclear program, hoping to reach a diplomatic solution to the conflict with Israel. In a special gesture, Iran opened airspace for evacuation flights to India. In the first phase, Indians were moved from Tehran to Mashhad through Qom. 1,000 Indian nationals in Mashhad made arrangement with Indian Embassy in Iran. The allocated Mahan Airlines first flight will arrive tonight. India has launched Operation Sindhu to evacuate its nationals from Iran. Dozens of countries are scrambling to assist their nationals living and working in Iran as the conflict with Israel continues to escalate. Beijing has evacuated more than 1,600 Chinese workers, students and tourists from Iran, while several hundred Chinese citizens have been evacuated from Israel. Around 90 Japanese nationals and their families have been evacuated from Israel and Iran to neighboring countries. Australia, New Zealand, Czech Republic, France and South Korea are some countries that are evacuating their nationals from Iran and Israel. Thousands of residents of Tehran turned out in mass on Friday prayers defying Israeli aggression. Iranian state television also showed thousands of people joining a protest against Israel in the Iranian capital. And well, joining us live on the show is James Marlow, journalist and military and political analyst from Jerusalem. Welcome to WION, Mr. Marlow. First up, Trump has set a timeline for 2 weeks on Iran. Do you think this goes against what Israel was expecting? And at this point of time, can perhaps Israel keep up with the same level of strikes against Iran for the next 15 days?
No, I don't think this goes against what Israel was expecting. Israel wanted the okay from President Trump, as we have found out now, despite what a lot of the media outlets said around the world, that there was huge tension between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. That wasn't the case whatsoever. They were speaking every couple of days. Donald Trump had actually said to the Iranians, you've got 60 days. And then on the 61st day, which of course was last Friday, 8 days ago, as you said earlier in the introduction, that's when the Israelis made the preempted strike, and it was devastating across the specific targets. Since that time, President Trump has said, I've kept in touch with the Israelis. I knew exactly what was taking place. I've spoken to Mr. Netanyahu every single day now about this conflict. And in his words, he says Israel is doing very well. And I have to tell you, from the Israeli point of view, it's actually beyond expectations of what the Israelis have actually achieved. It's together with amazing professional, well-trained pilots, and some say they're even better than the Americans, believe it or not, together with the intelligence on the ground in Iran, across Iran, but obviously mainly in and around Tehran. And that coming together has brought about some amazing achievements.
Right, Mr. Marlow, you've clearly said that Israel is doing very well. It's beyond expectations. But I want you to weigh on this report, which says that Israel has ammunition for the next 10 to 12 days only, and the fact that Israel's Iron Dome has also been breached.
Well, firstly, on the issue of how many munitions that Israel has, that's not a question for me. That's a question for the IDF, and I'm not sure the answer will be forthcoming. I don't imagine it will last for another week or 10 days. But again, I don't have any information about that whatsoever. On the second point, with regard to the, actually, I was going to say about the attacks. Excuse me, I've just forgotten what your second point was. Please remind me.
I was just saying, because you mentioned that Israel's doing exceptionally well in this war. So apart from the fact the report says that Israel only has ammo for next 10 to 11 days, the next report also says that Israel's Iron Dome has also been breached.
The Iron Dome. So let me just make this clear, because a lot of people make this mistake. The Israeli aerial defense systems consists of several defense mechanisms. The Iron Dome is only used for close-range missiles. In other words, those rockets that came from Islamic Jihad and Hamas and also Hezbollah in Lebanon. Because these are ballistic, international ballistic missiles, Israel uses a different system. It's called the Arrow system, the Arrow 3. So it literally hits outer space. Okay. In some cases, the debris is falling in Jordan, is falling in Syria, believe it or not, is also falling in Iraq. And I'm actually just hearing right now with regard to, because you mentioned this right at the beginning, that our air raid sirens went off pretty much across the country. There has been some hits, which seems to have landed in Haifa, which is also a very cosmopolitan area, an area of Christians, Muslims, and Jews. What I'm hearing right now is there are injuries, and it seems to be that one of these Iranian missiles has actually hit a mosque. Perhaps they were going for some government buildings close by. It's either hit the mosque or it's hit close by the mosque and done considerable damage to that. So that's exactly why these international ballistic missiles are not accurate. They're hitting all sorts of residential areas, and we heard yesterday the hospital in Beersheba.
Right, Mr. Marlow, on the point you made there of Arrow interceptors, reports also suggest that Israel is running low on Arrow interceptor stocks. But the point you made there about how Iranians are targeting residential areas in Israel, I want to bring your attention to the fact that the IDF has warned Iranians to evacuate area of Arak heavy water reactor. At this point of time, why is Israel attacking non-nuclear complexes?
Well, they are part of the nuclear complexes. The centrifuges is part of making a potential atomic bomb. The enrichment areas is part of making an atomic bomb. These water reactors are all part of making an atomic bomb. They're spread right across Iran. The Israelis have been talking about this for more than 20 years. I remember being in meetings with the IDF about 15 years ago, talking about what would be the plan when we got closer and closer. And it seems to be in the last few weeks, the talks were taking place. President Trump said he wasn't making progress. The IAEA actually specifically said that it had gone beyond 60%. They were very concerned. They brought a resolution about this. And the Israelis believe that they were very, very close to weapons grade. And because the Iranians have said for 20, 30 years, the Israeli state will be destroyed. We will destroy it. And so when, this is from the Israeli point of view, when the Israelis get told, or when the Jewish people get told that somebody is going to destroy you, they want to listen, they want to take note, and they will preempt themselves to defend themselves. Adolf Hitler said exactly the same thing. He wrote a book about it in the 1920s, Mein Kampf. Nobody believed him. They wrote him off as a complete and utter idiot. Hamas and Islamic Jihad, they have in their charter, their manifesto, the complete destruction of Israel and its Jewish people.
Mr. Marlow.
And again, many people just thought that that wasn't the case. But we see what happened on October the 7th, 18 months ago, that was the case. That at least they tried to do that. So now when the Iranians say that, the Israelis feel we have to make a preemptive strike. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of Western governments that are very, very, very supportive of Israel. They might be making statements out in the open to make it so, for example, Sir Keir Starmer in Britain is making some very, very political correct statements in public. But what I've been told from the Israeli point of view, behind the scenes, Sir Keir Starmer is speaking to the Prime Minister and he's being kept in touch. President Trump is speaking regularly to the Prime Minister, and it could even be that we might see some RAF planes also on maneuvers in the area as well. You have to understand there's politics involved in this. There's an electorate. There's people who support. There's an election coming up. Well, obviously in the UK, it's not for another 3 years or so. But these are concerns that politicians have.
Right, Mr. Marlow.
Behind the scenes, things are not the same as what they are in front of the media.
All right, Mr. Marlow, my last question to you. You speak of how the nuclear program was why the preemptive strikes were launched, and you quoted IAEA as well. Just last week, the IAEA said that there is no evidence that Iran was perhaps pursuing nuclear weapons. And Netanyahu said, like you mentioned, that these strikes were preemptive. So on what basis did these strikes actually start, when Iran has been saying that the nuclear program is only for its civic nukes and facilities and programs?
I have to tell you that I regularly listen to the BBC and the BBC World Service. It is very critical when it comes to Israel in a lot of people's views in this country. But even the BBC got on ex-IAEA people, senior directors, and that's not what they're saying. So if that report is correct, if they're being very careful that they don't believe that Iran was close to a nuclear weapon, well, once you enrich that once you enrich the uranium to a point that it's weapons grade, that's it. There's no chance of talking anymore. You cannot take out the nuclear weapons once they've got the nuclear weapons. Any country around the world raised the question as to why, for peaceful purposes, the Iranians needed to enrich uranium more than 60%. I've listened to interviews from the IAEA who've actually said the Iranians are way above what they need to be doing. There's not one country in the world, not one country except Iran, that is enriching uranium for a so-called peaceful process above that 60%. Okay. Next, it will be weapons grade. That's the concern. And India also should be very concerned about this if the Iranians ever got a nuclear weapon. That's why you need to take them out beforehand.
Right, Mr. Marlow, India has taken a diplomatic stance now for de-escalation both the sides, but we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us here on WION.